Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Gonzales Mitchell Show. My name's Clay Mitchell,
And I'm Patrick Gonzales.
and today Patrick and I are going to talk about our podcast and the show, how we came about it, why we're doing it, and what our plans are for the future. After that, Patrick and I will talk about what's in the news, next week's Democratic National Convention in Chicago. So without further ado, Patrick, what's going on?
Ooh, this is a really groovy party.
It sure is. What's
Clay,
happening?
Clay, you and I have been noodling around with this idea of doing a podcast for months and months.
That's right.
Politics for us is a deep passion. It's innate. It's literally in our blood. Your dad first held elective office when you were still in diapers, rising to become the Speaker of the Maryland House of Delegates. He was quite a man.
I thank you
My
for that. It's in the blood. It's in the blood, no
It
doubt.
is. It is. My mother in 1960 carried her 3-year-old son, who also was in diapers, canvassing the neighborhoods of Norfolk, Virginia, stomping for JFK when he took on Tricky Dick back in 60. Now, whenever I think of that, I'm reminded of one line. President Dwight Eisenhower was asked one time, can you name one positive thing that Vice President Nixon has done? And Eisenhower's response was, give me a week or two and I'll come up with something. So, and I don't want to sit around picking on Tricky Dick, but anyway.
It
So,
went, go ahead.
yeah. And then several years later, my mother was forced back into the workplace and she got a job in the mid 60s as a political news reporter here in the state, starting out with the Morning Herald in Hagerstown, moving soon after to the Evening Capital in Annapolis, and ending up with the News American in Baltimore covering politics. You and I have been around politics our whole life, brother.
Over 60 years, my whole life. My whole
Ex-
life.
exactly. And I mean, when you and I were sitting around watching Petticoat Junction, the house was full of wheeling and dealing political shenanigans. And I guess if I had to sum up in one word, my motivation for us doing this show, it would be frustration. I've been watching for the past 10 years or so the national political debate, the dialogue, the back and forth devolve, deteriorate into what charitably, which I think honestly could be called a cesspool today. And people that I admire, that I agree with, enter that national dialogue. And I watch afterwards and they come out a little sullied, a little soiled. And I think primarily it goes back to an old saying often attributed to Mark Twain, which is never argue with idiots because onlookers might not be able to tell the
The
difference.
difference.
And
Correct.
that's what our political debate. Now I watch most of my stuff through cable because I'm an old guy and that's just how I see it. And I see this as an opportunity for you and me to try and take a little different approach. That's sort of my raison d'etre for being here.
I think that you and I can talk about topics of the day without feeling like we need to curry favor with anybody. We could just talk about what we want to talk about and say, what we think is the truth. Uh, we do plan on having guests on in the future, both political leaders, business leaders, community leaders. I think we want to give them a space where it's safe to talk about their, not a safe space. What am I, a millennial? To
Yeah,
give them,
yeah, you're a little
to
bit of millennial. No, you ain't no
give them,
millennial.
to give them a space to talk, for us to hear their message without, and like you said, watching television without playing a game of gotcha. I'd like to hear
Yeah,
what they have to say about a topic. We may ask some questions about it, but we're not going to be antagonistic like Crossfire or Firing Line or any of those shows.
exactly. I know they get clicks, but how about you and I employ some basics like good manners? You and I are going to try as best as we can to be polite. How about we try? How about this, brother? We approach each and every individual that comes on our show with a little bit of respect, and we're just going to continue that throughout their interview.
Here on the shore, we say yes, ma'am, yes, sir, and thank you. So there's no fear coming on this show that we're not going to be totally respectful. And I do want to hear different leaders and community leaders talk about what they're doing and what they see and what problems they may have and how they think they're going to solve them without fear that we're going to pull up a quote that they made in 1998 and attack them with it. This is a place where you could come and talk to Patrick and Clay and
Ex- exactly, and we are going to try to discourage them from hitting nothing but talking points, mouthing the same old platitudes. We
right.
encourage and want people to come on and speak from the heart, tell the truth. Hey, how about coming up with an original thought every now and then? Because when I watch the news these days, I haven't seen an original thought come out of the lips of a talking head on television for I don't know how long.
And it's all of the networks. There is no
It's
exception
all of them.
anymore.
It's
It
all of them.
is. It's all of them. Unless you watch a live feed off of YouTube that just shows you the real footage, I don't trust anything that any of them tell me anymore. I really don't.
No, and
So
I try, you and I, we all have our kind of go-to places for news and stuff like that. But I remember, like right after the debate, you and I were texting back and forth during the debate, and my immediate reaction after the debate ended, I wanted to hit all the channels. I wanted to hit CNN. I wanted to hit MSNBC. I wanted to hit Fox. And what kind of blew my mind was on each station, each channel, they were saying the exact same thing, which was some unanimity we don't see very often.
yeah, you do hear talking points on all the channels. There's like the word of the week that everybody uses. Weird was the word a week or two ago, and everybody was saying that word, and it's contrived.
Yeah,
And
and
I'd like this to be a space where no one says anything like that. They just tell us their story.
yeah. I mean, when I hear, I expect a lot of the doobie political figures. Some of the congressmen that have been there for a couple of terms or so. Yeah, go ahead and repeat the talking point. But when I see high level politicians that have been around for decades mouthing the same old talking point, my immediate reaction, A, is have you no self awareness, and then have you no self respect? I mean, come on, let's speak from the heart.
And when they show the clips of what they said before and what they say today, as Secretary Alexander Hood said, it's not a lie, it's a terminological inexactitude.
Exactly. There is no
So,
context in the world we live right now.
so get serious for a moment. Speaking of the news, next week we have a political event in Chicago, the Democratic National Convention. How about them apples?
Ooh, that's going to be another really groovy party.
Yeah, you can't help, Patrick, but look back to 1968. Democratic convention was in Chicago, and there were just a lot of similarities between this year and 1968. What do you think?
Dude, as you said that, I was what grade? I was in seventh grade, I think, back then. And please come to Chicago.
Chicago.
I'm just grooving on that right now. And I think, what what kind of boggles my mind are the similarities, brother. And I'm telling you, let me throw out a couple. You tell me a
Okay.
couple.
All right.
Okay, number one, the Democratic nominee for president this year did not receive one vote in a primary. Hubert Horatio Humphrey
Humphrey.
in 1968 did not receive one primary vote.
Yeah.
The nominee for president this year was the sitting vice president, Kamala Harris. The nominee for president in 1968 was sitting vice president
President
Hubert Humphrey.
H. Humphrey.
And one other similarity that strikes me is that at some point, the sitting president announced, I will not seek and I will not accept my party's nomination.
Isn't that something?
Oh, my lordy.
You know,
What do you?
I harken back. Remember how the year started? Just like '68, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones released new music.
She
Can,
loves you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
can you? It's just like mind blowing. In 2024,
I
Beatles,
know.
Stones, new music. That just blows my mind. What are the odds of that?
That would
Um,
be, real quick, not to interrupt, but that would be the equivalent of a song from 1918 ish being the number one hit in 1968.
that that's mind blowing. That's just mind blowing. Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. You just can't do it. Um, the other thing, Patrick, I remember, the Prime Minister of Canada was Pierre Trudeau. It's Justin Trudeau today. It, there's another similarity. You look back to Europe in '68. The Soviets occupied a country in Europe, Czechoslovakia. They rolled the
Yep,
tanks in. What are they doing this year? They occupy a country in Europe, Ukraine.
yep.
Uh, it, it, it is just
How about How about Bobby Kennedy hanging
Bobby
around?
Kennedy running, and the candidate for president was the subject of an assassin's bullet.
Yep,
I just with Bobby Kennedy in '68 and Donald Trump this year,
yep.
it there's just so much history being made so quickly. It is just mind blowing. Hopefully, the Democratic convention next week won't be like the one in '68. Hopefully, they go in, do their thing. It's a fait accompli. Harris is the nominee. Close the convention. Say yeah, 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 and let's roll on and have a serious election.
I think the only thing that can happen to disrupt things next week is external, outside the building. I think the Democrats have their troops pretty well corralled and in sync and in
Yeah,
agreement, and that'll be unlike '68. '68, you had some heavy duty stuff going on inside the convention, and I think. Excuse me if I'm getting the wrong dude. I think it was Dan Rather in '68 said, "Get your hands off me" to the cops or
right.
something. And so
I said,
hopefully,
Looks like we got a bunch of thugs down there, Dan.
yeah, exactly. And so I think that'll be a little more organized. Potentially, the only problems are on the outside with that huge, and I mean huge, chasm between one wing of the party and another. And the
Right.
other is our Jewish Americans and the wing of the party that, let's not mince words, detests and despises Jewish Americans. How is that going to play out, not only during the convention, but over the next 3 or 4 months? So we'll see.
When the Chicago convention goes on, I'm sure we'll be communicating, and on our next episode, we'll give our thoughts.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Patrick,
Yes.
what did you learn in class today?
Clay, I learned that I can't go out drinking at night. I better just stay home and do my homework. No more drinking for me.
That's great. Uh, Patrick, I'm glad that we have this format. We have a space for people to talk, that they can talk with you and me, more importantly, and that we'll get back together. And I'll see you next time. So say goodbye, Patrick.
Goodbye, Patrick, and arrivederci, baby. We'll see you all next time.
See you next time.